Okay, you need me to, oh, I can go now? All right, here we go. 6 o'clock, calling to order the Special Planning Commission meeting for Riverbank City Hall, Monday, November 6, 2017, 6 p.m. Roll call. Here.
Here.
Here. John. Do you have your microphone turned on?
I do now. Here.
I don't even have mine on. I'm not.
All right, good.
If I could make a brief note, you do have the ability to turn off and on your microphones, and so if you want to have kind of a sidebar conversation, feel free to turn it off.
Oh, okay.
And just want to welcome Mr. Dinan to the dais.
Thank you.
All righty, welcome.
I have one thing too. When the weather drops below 70 for about 3 weeks, my nose, eyes, and everything run. So I'm used to working in 100 degrees. So if I'm sitting here sneezing or my nose is running or I'm coughing, it's not that I've got some grip that's going to kill you all off.
You know it's 70 degrees.
Got wool shirts and a couple shirts underneath, and this thing,
It's gotta be 70,
just breaking even right now.
Good to know.
All right, we continue on. Conflict of interest. Any planning commission member or staff who has conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Any conflicts? Seeing none, moving forward. Public comments. No action to be taken. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person, and each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person under state law. Matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For records purposes, state your name and city of residence. Please make your comments directly to the Planning Commission. 2, consent calendar.
Nope.
Oh, here we go.
Public comment?
Hmm?
We just had to see if she had a public comment.
Oh, okay. Seeing no public comments, we move forward. Consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are to be acted upon by a single action of the Planning Commission Board unless otherwise requested by an individual Planning Commission member for special consideration. Otherwise, the recommendation of staff will be accepted and acted upon. So we're looking for item on the consent calendar, item 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. I move we approve item 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 of the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
Okay, hold on a sec. Chair McKinney,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner McRitchie,
Yes.
and Commissioner
Dinan?
Dinan. Sorry.
I don't get a vote.
Oh, you.
That's right.
He can vote? Can
Not-
he vote?
Wasn't there
Oh,
for the
that's right,
minutes.
that's right. He has to abstain.
And plus, I'm not
Just say-
effective until January 1st.
So
So.
it'll
I
be.
asked you about January.
He's right around the corner.
He's not actually an office.
Hey, look at there.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Okay,
That's
okay. All right, so
See, we just like
it
to
passes
dive
3-0.
on in.
3-0.
I was under the impression that if he was filling in for someone, he had the full authority.
Effective January 1st.
Is that what it is?
When the nomination from or the approval by the city council, the term is January 1st
I see.
through December 31st,
Okay.
2019.
All right.
All righty. We already took a roll count, right?
Yeah.
That's done. Okay,
got
here we
it.
go. Item 3, public hearing presentations. Riverbank Special Planning Commission agenda for November 6, 17. So what are we doing here on this one? Oh, okay. Here we go. Okay. So I guess we're looking at item 3.1.
Yes.
Okay, General Planning Amendment 02/2017. Okay. So, I guess at this point, does anyone want to make a motion?
No, I thought we'd wait
Oh.
for it.
Staff, go ahead. See, I'm in a hurry.
I'm confused.
Well, we're on item 3.1. We got a general
Yes.
plan amendment.
Your staff
We're gonna-
report.
Want to approve it by roll call, but is it something staff want to add to 3.1?
No,
No?
let's see.
We're good with that?
Are you gonna do the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a PowerPoint. I guess I was on,
Yeah, there we go.
I was on 2.4. I apologize.
Okay.
Yes.
That's all right.
Okay. All right. And the PowerPoint?
It's up.
Okay. So this is general, excuse me, general plan amendment 02-2017 and rezone 01-2017. The city, to maintain its consistency with its housing element, desires to redesignate a parcel of 2.4 acres from low-density residential to high-density residential, and rezone it from single-family residential to multiple-family residential. The property is located at 2644 Morel Road, APN 075-030-001, within an R1 single-family residential zoning district. As I mentioned, this is a city-initiated general plan amendment and rezone. Our 2015-2023 housing element has a number of programs within it. And one of the programs was to rezone a piece of property from R1 to R3 per HCD, HCD, Housing and Community Development. And in order to do that, we also have to do the general plan amendment to make sure everything is consistent with each other. Okay, the project location is the purple triangle right there on Morel Road, right adjacent to the canal. There are single-family residences around it and a mobile home park to the rear of it.
The pointer won't work.
The pointer doesn't work on there.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so our housing element was adopted by City Council in April 2009. The program is 1.1C, which is mandated by the state to meet the city's regional housing needs. And 2644 Morel Road was identified as a prime location for a rezone to a higher density. The program actually states, to meet the unaccommodated need from the fourth cycle, the city will rezone the site listed in Table 7-7 and adopt a general plan amendment. Failure to rezone the site to address the unaccommodated need from the fourth cycle by the time frame will result in housing element non-compliance. And if the city is in non-compliance, we are unable to move forward with federal and state grants. So as I mentioned, the current general plan land use designation is low density, which is LDR, and that supports a density of 1 to 8 units per acre. The proposed change would go to HDR, which supports a density of 16 units plus per acre. The rezone is from an R1, which supports a density of 1 to 8 units per acre. And then the rezoning of the site will rezone it to multiple family residential, which is 16 plus units per acre. Now, I would like to mention that since this is city initiated, there is no project to review at this time. There's no map, there's no architectural and site design review. We actually contacted the property owners to begin this process. So we sent a letter by certified mail to the property owner. She signed a ballot saying she was in favor of the general plan amendment and rezone. And then the Planning Commission has a public hearing to consider recommending these to the City Council. As I mentioned, and I'll bring it up again because I did receive a phone call and a couple of emails, excuse me, not emails, but text on Facebook asking about what the project was. Was it apartments? Was it houses? So I just want to clarify, there is no project at this time. Okay, so in response, okay, so the property owner did sign a ballot stating they supported the redesignation and rezoning. And while they don't have any project right now for multiple family housing, the way that our zoning is set up for the R3, they could actually just build a single family residence there. They don't have to do multifamily, they don't have to do duplexes. They could just build a house there if they'd like to, or remodel the one that's actually there and not in good shape. CEQA, the project itself is exempt from further review because CEQA only applies to projects which have the potential for causing a significant effect on the environment. And basically what we're doing is just on paper. This doesn't affect the environment at all. We're just changing the zoning and changing the general plan designation, should you desire. So we do recommend that you recommend to the City Council that they approve the general plan amendment and the ordinance to rezone these acres, so then we can move forward, have a consistent or a housing element that's consistent with the general plan and with our programs, and we can move forward and apply for a CDBG grant in December. One more thing is staff did receive a letter, and you've received a copy of it today. It's from a neighbor of this property, and there were a couple of questions that they'd asked that I'll go over really quickly. Bless you. They wanted to know if this was going to be Section 8 or low-income housing, and as I had stated previously, there is no project. Will there be a Mello-Roos tax implemented? Yes. If sometime in the future there are apartments built here, they will have to annex into our Community Facilities District 01-2016 that we approved of last year. And then they are also concerned with parking with the construction. And staff, in the future, when there is a project, will do everything that we can to have as little impact on the neighbors as possible, working with future developers to make sure that happens. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
I do. I'm stuck on this being in compliance with the state. To be in compliance, the city merely needs to rezone that to high density. And if the property owner decides to build one single family residence, does that have any result on that?
No.
So the city merely needs to rezone the property.
Correct. We aren't in the business of, constructing homes, but they do believe that the city can move forward and kind of pave the way for future developers. They would like to see more sites within the city become multiple family. This site was selected as a possible location. And all we really need to do in this particular program of the housing element is to rezone and redesignate it under the general plan, and then our part in it is done. We've paved the way for somebody else. So if, say, 5 years or 10 years from now, the property owner decides that they found a builder they like, maybe they want to do some apartments there, then they've actually saved not only time but also money, because they don't have to pay for a general plan amendment. They don't have to pay for the rezone. It's been done by the city for them to kind of pave the way.
Okay, I'm sorry. Now, there are no other apartments. There's no other high density. area on that street, if I remember correctly. That would be, if it was to go to high density, that would be the only parcel there?
I believe so.
Well, you have the
You have the
Trailer.
mobile home park.
mobile home park right behind it and up adjacent.
But not
to
there
it.
on Morrill, right?
Correct.
Right, correct, yes.
Okay, so what we're saying is that, so, is there a certain number of high-density residential zone properties that the city has to have to be in compliance? Is there a certain number that we have to hit?
Well, the state felt that, we've been moving forward with, say, those new apartments on Claus, not only on the corner, but the new ones that were built just south of the high school. So we are moving forward, and we do have some that were already zoned, but they feel like we're still lacking in about 2.5 acres of possible multifamily housing. And this isn't the only program that was in our housing element. There were a number of programs that included adding emergency housing to certain sections of, well, in fact, that item already came before you that talked about transitional housing and employee housing. So there were other programs that we've already addressed, and this is the final one to become compliant.
Does the state actually give us a percentage that we need to meet?
Normally, they give us the number of units that need to be met. And, to be honest, we hired John Anderson Planning to update our housing element. So as far as if there's an actual percentage, I personally don't know. But I do know that they tell us how many units of very low income, moderate housing that we have to provide each year. And our city, like most cities, aren't able to provide that because, like I said, we don't build the housing. We can just try to entice the builders to come.
Okay, and is any of the land in the old cannery parcel, is that being considered for high density?
Not at this time. It wasn't as a program in the housing element.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. The only thing I'm looking at here is that everything in there looks like R1, right? Single family.
Yes.
And then this will be one little one in the middle, which is gonna affect property value. Most definitely it will, if apartments go there, because it's only, I mean, that's just my own personal opinion. I'm just looking at it, if I'm a concerned resident and something like that's coming up. Another one, we got the canal. So we already know that the canal has some type of estuary type of effect because some type of creatures are living there, because we don't have too many things that are built on, that when you start, disrupting the earth and what have you up under there, then I'm sure a sequel will come in later on down the road. But only thing I see is property value possibly. If we look to go from R1 to R3, then we're saying, okay, well, we want, we're allowing this to be, because we can't build out, building up. We're going to build apartments here. And then we have, the issue of what's important right now. Do we need to pick this one here right now? Or is there another one we could pick and still meet the quota of what we need for the state? And then because this is just it looks like, a single family residence right there, plopped in the middle before we jump on to saying, okay, let's go ahead and do this one. And then next thing we know, we find out that, okay, we have a lot of resistance to it and we got to go back to restricting it to R1 because of how it is defacing the other properties. They're not looking uniform anymore. The uniformity of it starts to decay. So that's why that's my only thing. Is it something else that we could look at besides this one, and why is this one so important that we make a decision on this one?
Well, this was analyzed when we were moving through the housing element update process. This item or this parcel was looked at. It was analyzed. It was determined that this is the parcel that would move forward to be rezoned, and it was adopted in
There were
public
no
hearing.
other ones that were like we didn't have like three to choose from and say, well, this was the best one.
I wasn't here for those hearings. It was
Okay.
before I started here, but there were no others mentioned in the housing element. And I know another program within the housing element that's required that I'm working on now is to keep a list of possible farm worker housing sites on the city's website. So if any developers are interested, they could go to our website, see what parcels that might possibly work for them, and then move forward in that direction. We don't have to rezone those parcels for them, but we just have to make vacant parcels available to developers who are looking.
Right.
So there's several different types of programs that we are addressing in the housing element, and then this is one of them that was selected when it was adopted.
I was surprised to see it was single family. 2007, 2008, it was zoned multiple. And we had the whole room filled with people from Morel that were very concerned about some of the things that had been mentioned. At that time, they had a plan, and the plan we changed to meet the concerns of the residents. One was the original driveway would have shined right into the person's front room. So the driveway was moved over so that it just went up, whatever that road is, runs into it. Jackson. So we eliminated that. The other thing was, is in sort of addressing his concerns, is that the planting in front of it was such that it could not be seen from the road. So lights, it was almost like a noise barrier and everything else was in there. So like I say, today I was surprised to see it, or whenever I looked at this, that it was back to single family, R1. Because we went to great lengths at that time to make sure that the development that was planned satisfied all the residents' concerns. And there were many of them, and we did do a lot of stuff, and the developer agreed, and then the market went south, and that was the end of it.
Oh, okay. A little history.
The project expired, probably due to lack of money and building at the time.
Okay.
But this is a public hearing, so we do need
I'd like to hear what the,
All right, so at this time, we'd like to open up for public hearing, the floor. So if anyone from the public have any comments? No?
He said no,
Okay, so I guess we close the
public hearing.
public hearing to the floor, and I guess we're gonna make a motion now?
Just to clarify, there are two resolutions, so you'll need to make two separate motions, one for each.
Right,
So is that the 0217 and the 01?
2017-021 is for the rezone,
Mm-hmm.
and then that contains as an attachment the ordinance that would go to the city council.
Okay.
Oops, I guess I went past the other one, sorry. 2017-020 then is the general plan amendment.
Okay. So we've got the rezoning and the general plan amendment.
Yes.
They have to match.
Well, you would vote on one first, the general plan amendment, and then the other, the rezone.
I don't understand.
Okay, so the general plan amendment is also to accept the rezoning. Is that what, because why are we doing both of them?
Right.
I'm trying to, I feel like I'm trying to, they seem like they would be one and the other.
Well, the rezone is done by ordinance, and so it has an attached ordinance to it, where the general plan, when it, amendment, when it goes to city council, they will, if they choose to, adopt it by resolution. So the general plan amendment is resolution, the rezone to council is an ordinance.
Well, to me, they go together under item 3.1. Seems to me there's just a single vote on item 3.1.
Yeah, and it would handle both of them, right? Because we looking at the general plan is the rezoning, right? The general plan
Well,
is the zoning.
They're two different maps. The general plan is a 20-year plan for
Right.
the future. The zoning is what regulates the uses right now.
Okay, well, in the future, I think we ought to separate those out. And if we're going to have two votes, let's have two different items.
We do. Two different resolutions.
Yeah, like item 3.1 and 3.2. Instead of just both of them on 3.1.
Well,
Does that make sense?
They go
no,
together, but
it doesn't.
Okay.
We can do, I think a way around this would be like a 3.1A and a 3.1B is kind of what you're saying. So they're
Oh,
connected,
I
but
see.
then it's clearly
Yeah.
delineated.
Because it was hard to see the difference between
Right.
they seem very linked, so.
I got it.
Okay, so we're gonna move, I motion that we, approve, the general plan amendment 0217.
Oh, he doesn't have the ordinance in front of him, or
Yeah.
resolution.
How about
So
that?
That's
resolution.
020.
Yeah.
Is the resolution. Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, that would help
Okay.
us out.
A resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Riverbank, California, recommending City Council approval of a general plan amendment redesignating 2.4 acres located at 2644 Morel Road to higher density residential, HDR, APN 075030001.
Okay, I move that we approve the general plan amendment 027 APN 0750300-001.
I'll second it.
Chair McKinney,
Yes?
Commissioner Stewart,
No,
Commissioner McRitchie.
Yes.
So passes 2-1, or not really?
Third.
It does, with, if you only have three, if you have a quorum and you've got three, the 2-1 is an
Okay,
approval.
So 2-1, okay.
Mhm. Okay, and
So
then.
now
the
resolution
second one?
21.
Okay, now we've got rezoning.
Would you like me to read that?
Yes, if you would,
Okay.
please.
A resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Riverbank, California, recommending City Council approval of ordinance number 2017 dash, whatever they number it, to rezone 2.4 acres located at 2644 Morel Road to multiple family residential, R-3, APN 075030001.
Okay. Anybody else want to?
I'll move approval of that rezone.
I second it.
Okay, Chair McKinney,
Already seconded, yes?
okay. Commissioner Stewart
no,
and Commissioner McRitchie.
Yes.
And once again, that's a 2-1 vote.
Alrighty. Anything else?
Then we move on to, there's nothing for 4 or 5,
Mm-mm.
but 6 for staff comments.
Alrighty, and we're gonna move to staff comments.
Okay, the Planning Commission recruitment, 2 of the seats are up in December, December 31st. And my understanding is, the last time I spoke with Annabelle, that they had 5 applications so far. They were gonna leave it open a little bit while longer. I don't know if she had an end date, but then there will be interviews and hopefully a selection before the end of the year.
Whose seats are up?
Mine.
The one that Scott's filled and yours.
Oh,
I was
So
filling-
if you'd
filling
like to
in.
remain, you'll need to reapply.
alrighty. Any other comments?
Well, especially on this rezone thing, if I can comment on that. I think that the problem we have in the city was well outlined, that there's not enough affordable housing for the residents that would like to be here. And this particular project, we had vetted it over a number of meetings back in, like I say, 2007. And by the time we got finished with it, it turned out to be a pretty good project that the residents of, especially Morel and right on that road I always forget.
Jackson.
Jackson were then supporting. But we listened to everybody, and the changes made, a lot of them didn't cost the developer anything. So we looked at cars. If you go to the top of the R1 and you have whatever it is, number of units, and we figured there was 2 cars per unit. when we went to the multiple family, the statistics showed 1 car per unit. So the traffic, which was a concern, didn't appear to be there. And then, like I say, we changed the plantings, we changed the roadway in and all these other things so that the people on Morel would not be disturbed. We had a situation with the wildlife out there, but unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, for the landowner, there's nothing much we could do about that. It wasn't endangered species or anything of that nature. It was ducks that everybody was feeding. And everybody wanted to keep it that way, and they wanted to keep the trees and so on and so forth. But the property owner did have the right to develop it. So it was, that was probably the one thing we weren't able to do anything about. The canal was still there, the ducks would probably still be there, but the trees and so on, they'd try to preserve some, but they wouldn't be there. So it was a sort of a long number of meetings to go through all this, but the mitigation, when we were finished with it, everybody seemed to be satisfied.
You know, Scott, what I don't remember how many units they had planned to put on that property. I don't think it was like this high density.
Well, what they're allowed to do and what they actually put on, can differ. But, yeah, I don't remember how many either.
Yeah,
But I know it was higher density.
Yeah, higher, but I don't think it's as much as they're anticipating in this.
Well, when they come up with a plan, then we can delve into that.
People will be back, hopefully.
All righty. Any other comments? All righty, going, so our next regular planning commission meeting will be what, November 21st, 2017, 6 p.m. Other than that, planning commission meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there some way you can